You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Bible Guys. I'm Chris.
Woohoo! And I'm Jeff.
And we together make up The Bible Guys, plural.
Oh, man.
And we talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
There you go.
You know,
How clever.
there are people who actually don't believe that the Bible is fun.
Huh?
But actually, that's
Or us.
What's that?
Or the Bible Guys, for that matter.
Right. They don't believe we're fun,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
No, but seriously, don't you believe that Jesus was fun?
Sure.
Yeah, I do.
I think so.
I believe he laughed.
Yeah,
I believe he cut up with his disciples.
absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, so we are fun as well.
Okay.
And today we're going to start off with a very fun segment.
Okay.
And
What is the segment? I wasn't even looking.
Yeah, the segment is Who Said It?
Oh,
It says,
that's
Chris,
right. You said
you're going to read these quotes from the Bible and see if Jeff can correctly guess who said each quote. So do you want to race?
That's going to make me look so bad.
Well, you know, it is what
okay.
it is.
Okay. Is this going to be like a listener race?
Yeah, let's try that.
All right, you can give us
why
some
not?
points.
So I'm going to...
Last time, don't skip on the points, dude.
Yeah.
Last time you were going to give like 1,000 points.
No. There's going to be 100,000 points.
Whoa, this is a big game.
per question.
Big game. So if they get the answer before I do,
Right,
or
if they ever say it out loud.
Okay, or if they just get the answer
And you don't.
and I don't.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
100,000 points.
Okay, so who said this? Are you
Okay,
ready? You have to just name the character.
Okay.
Character. How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time
Nicodemus.
into his mother's womb?
That's Nicodemus.
So
John 3.
Yeah, so
Yes.
guess what?
100,000 points. Woo!
Well, guess what? You finished before I was even done with the quote.
I know. That's a good one. Well, I'm trying to get these points.
Yeah, that's really good. Hopefully, I was going to say hopefully, but no, I bet you nobody beat you out there.
Okay. Here we go.
Number 2. What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?
Balaam's donkey.
Yes. Yes, that's really good. And I don't remember what passage that is.
It's out of Judges.
Judges, yeah, that's what I thought. How about this one?
I think. Maybe.
You ready?
Uh-huh.
This is John, whom I beheaded. He has been raised from the dead.
Herod.
Herod.
Yes.
That is correct.
King.
Yeah, King Herod.
Yeah, as I
King-
like to fondly call him.
Yes.
King
Oh,
Herod.
oh, King, live forever.
Mhm.
Number 4.
Uh-oh.
This is the one that's kind of tough.
Okay.
Look, you have mocked me and told me lies.
What? Look, you have mocked me and told me lies. Man alive. That sounds like Delilah.
It is Delilah.
Is it?
And ironically,
Samson's girlfriend.
Ironically, I just wrote this message last night.
Really?
I was writing for a upcoming message in a couple
cool.
weeks, and I just finished this.
Writing about Samson and Delilah.
And so I literally just read this verse last
Okay.
night. Pretty crazy.
Okay.
And then finally, I have nothing to do with that man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him.
Pilot's wife.
Pilate's wife it is.
There you go.
You are 5 for 5.
5 for 5.
Ding, 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 ding.
500,000 points. That might be the most points ever won
in any game.
in a game on the Bible Guys.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're making history today.
I'd like to thank everybody in my life that's helped me get to this point.
However, there's probably somebody out there that got Delilah before you, because you took a long time.
Well, I took a long time on Pilate too.
Well,
Pilot's wife. I mean.
not as long as Delilah.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay. Both of those.
But you did very good. 5 for 5
Yeah.
is good.
500,000. I'll take 500,000 points.
Well, we are going to...
Is there like a trophy or something? Am I going to get a T-shirt?
Hang on for a second.
Can I get like a?
Hang on for a second. Here we go.
Okay.
Golf clap.
I was hoping maybe there'd be like a gift certificate to Golden Corral or something.
Golden Corral. Wow, you pulled that out of the 80s.
Yeah, there you go.
That's so
Sizzler.
funny.
Did you ever like
Ooh,
Sizzler?
Ponderosa.
Yeah. Oh, I love Ponderosa.
Yeah, Ponderosa's great.
When I was a kid, I loved Ponderosa.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I keep my Bible Guys
Hang on.
official Bible Guys fan club card.
Hang on. Bennigan's.
Bennigan's. I remember
Steak and
Bennigan's.
Ale.
Yeah, I remember Bennigan's. I don't remember. I never went to Steak and Ale. I don't think, but
Yeah, I was trying to think of other ones that were gone. Okay. So, hey, we're launching into Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 16. We're in our series called Milestones of the Old Testament. Did we rest on milestones?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
That feels good to me today.
It does.
That's what we're calling it today.
Okay. So, and we're going to talk about Abraham and Sarai, or Abram and Sarai, and the birth of their first son.
Okay. Now, you remember we talked a couple days ago about how Abram was nervous and he lied to the Pharaoh and about his wife. And,
yes.
But then, God said, hey, Abram, I'm going to make you a great man, and I'm going to make your family great, and from your family, I'm going to bless the world. But at this point, they didn't have any kids.
Right.
So no kids.
And he's old.
And he's getting older. And so the chances of Abram and Sarai having babies is, in their minds, almost gone. And so here's what it says in Genesis 16. This is really a weird story to be in the Bible. This is one of the reasons why the Bible's true. Because if you were making up a religion, you wouldn't write stuff like this.
Right.
So here's what it says. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, the Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her. And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, this is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me. Abram replied, look, she's your servant, so deal with her as you see fit. Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from? Where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress, Sarai, she replied. And the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. And then he added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son, and you are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. Therefore Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord, who had spoken to her. She said, you are the God who sees me. She also said, have I truly seen the one who sees me? So that well was named Bir Lahai Roy, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found near Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abraham a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
So we all know it's the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So the famous name is Isaac. But here, some people that I've met and had conversations with, they really don't realize that Abram's firstborn is Ishmael.
That's correct.
Now, what's really interesting about this is when I went over to Israel and when I went into Bethlehem Bible College and we sat down and we sat down with both Palestinians and also with Jews, and they were giving their perspective of their modern day conflict, right? Mm-hmm. And they tie it all the way back. And what's really interesting is that over there you sort of learn, you're in the middle also of the world of Muslims, right? So Jerusalem, for a lot of people who don't know, it is the capital, it is the epicenter of three of the major world religions, right?
Right.
Of Judaism,
right?
Jews, Hasidic Jews.
It's the capital of the three monotheistic religions.
Oh yeah, monotheistic.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. So Judaism, so all the Jews that live there, they don't believe in Jesus. They believe in the Old Testament. And then Christianity, which is, the Christians who believe that Jesus was the Messiah, who showed up and obviously, lived and died in Jerusalem. And then about 1,500 years later,
600 years, 630 something years after Jesus.
Okay. Was Islam.
Yeah. Right? Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad. So the Prophet Muhammad, Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad was directly related to Ishmael.
Ishmael, yep.
And of course, Judaism, the Jewish lineage is traced back directly to
Isaac.
And so does Christianity then through
Right.
Jesus, right? And so
Isn't that
this
wild?
conflict has been going on. These two brothers,
Mm-hmm.
Ishmael and Isaac, have been fighting for, well, now 4,000 years.
4,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that
So
amazing?
it's so unbelievably simple. If you look at it that way, it's like, look at this promise from the angel who says he's going to be a wild man and he's going to be openly aggressive and
Towards all his neighbors.
toward all his neighbors. And if you look at Muslims and Jews in the same, fighting over the same capital, right? The same piece of real estate
Jerusalem.
in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
In fact, isn't the Dome of the Rock exactly where the temple used to
It
be?
sits on the same foundation as the temple. Yeah. So the Temple Mount was a giant complex. Where the Holy of Holies would have sat is maybe just off from where the Dome of the Rock sits. But yeah, it's all in that same complex where the temple was.
Yeah, and so in history, the Muslims took advantage of the fact that the temple was destroyed, and they sort of took over the land, and they
Yeah, it was at the end of the Crusades that they
end of the
had
Crusades.
taken that spot and
then took advantage of that and have the rightful claim of that piece of land. Actually, that's really the big debate,
I was
isn't
gonna say
it?
rightful is they currently control it. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say they believe they have the rightful land.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Ishmael was not the father of Islam, right? Ishmael was the father of most of those Arabic nations
Right.
in the Middle East.
Right.
And then out of that came eventually one of his ancestors about 600 years after Jesus, the Prophet Muhammad, that founded Islam. So, this is really astounding that God, or that the angel of the Lord had said to Hagar, listen, he's going to be a wild man. He's going to be constantly in battle, but man, there's going to be a big family that comes from him. And it's true.
Right. Yeah.
In the same way that God had said there'll be a big family that comes from the one, from Abram and Sarai's child.
Yeah.
So here you have a lack of faith,
Right.
right, in Sarai,
Doubting
and
God's
Abram,
promises,
right?
because
Abram
of
is
circumstances.
okay, and they own a person. She's Egyptian, probably came from when Pharaoh gave them wealth and servants and all this kind of stuff. But Sarai felt like she owned Hagar to the point that if Hagar had a baby, it was Sarai's baby. Right? That's kind of and that concept has existed in human history for thousands of years anyways. The idea of a servant, being a surrogate mother for a person. But anyways, the Bible doesn't say it's right. The
Right.
Bible just tells it the way it is.
Right.
Right? And that's what happened. But this lack of faith in this moment has changed human history.
Right.
Right? You think of how many social conflicts, how many political conflicts, how many wars have been fought between Ishmael and Isaac, right? And for thousands of years. And it all goes back to this one sinful moment.
Right. And it's interesting too, because so there's a lot of people that I know who, they trust in God's promises. They want, blessings. They want results. They pray for a result. And sometimes it's not unreasonable requests, like, hey, God, just please supply me a job. God, please just, help me to do this or this or that.
Right.
Hey, I pray for this person to accept Christ. These are not unreasonable requests. And sometimes when circumstances build up and time goes on and there's distance and time, people start to get discouraged and they say, God hasn't spoken, God hasn't worked, God is not there, God doesn't care. And these are all emotions, right? We're talking years here. The reason why Sarai believed that God hasn't given her children or the Lord has prevented her having children is because she was old. She was old at this point.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, there's just no way. And so, not realizing that God trumps all odds.
Right.
Right. God is able to do whatever, regardless of circumstances.
And she didn't realize that it was going to still be another 13 more years before God actually did it, right?
Right.
God was just waiting until it was only God that could have done this, right? That's what he's doing. God was going to get all the glory for this miracle, and she was impatient in waiting. And so was Abram. You have to say they both were, because if Abram really believed God, he wouldn't have gone down that path either. So they both they just took it into matters in their own hands. And I think sometimes, we just have to simply wait. And that is so contrary to our nature, especially in our culture today when everything happens so quickly. This is funny. I found myself getting frustrated. You ever have one of those days where you just feel like you're probably going to have a bad day? Have you ever just woke up knowing this is probably going to be a bad day for whatever reason? I just kind of had this, I don't know if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever. So, my morning habit, I like to pull in and grab a sausage McMuffin or a sausage biscuit or something at McDonald's. And so I pull in and I could just see the lady in front of me as she's pulling up to the drive-thru is driving a little too slow. And then have you ever gotten behind somebody in the drive-thru and they look at the menu like it's the first time they've ever been to McDonald's?
Right. As if anybody doesn't know the menu of McDonald's.
So she's, oh, gee, I wonder what they serve, right? So she's looking, hello, can I take your, welcome to McDonald's, can I take your order, right? And she's like, hang on just a minute, I'm thinking. And she's just looking, okay, it's various versions of eggs, bread,
right,
and 2 meats, 3 meats, right? If you take the Canadian bacon. That's it. It's not super complex. And they're going to give you a fried potato out the window. So just pick one, right? Right. And so she took so long. And I just feel myself like almost saying bad words under my breath about, come on.
Right.
So I'm getting more and more and more upset. The other lane was blocked off. Finally, she pulls up. I pull up. And I looked at my clock and it was 3 minutes. 3 minutes. It just felt like forever. It felt so long. It took her 3 minutes to figure out what her order was. This poor old lady, then it took her another minute, I think, to drive up to the window. She was just probably shouldn't have been driving, but just barely moving. And instead of me being patient in 3 minutes, I kind of started losing my temper.
Right.
3 minutes.
Right.
And I thought, what is wrong with me that I can't just wait?
Right.
And so then when I find myself praying for a thing, praying for somebody, praying for God to intervene in a way, and I don't get my answer in 3 days, I start getting impatient. Mm-hmm. If I don't get my answer in 3 months, 3 years, I just,
Right.
And here Abram was waiting for decades for this promise to come.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for us to look down on them. This idea of a servant having a baby for her mistress was a culturally acceptable thing. It's not morally acceptable, but it was culturally acceptable. You can understand how they would have done that kind of thing.
Right.
But they were waiting for decades for an answer to prayer. And I can't wait 3 minutes to drive up for my order at McDonald's. Yeah. So it's hard for me to judge either one of them too hard on this one.
Yeah.
Even though it was wrong, what they did, certainly. And here the world suffers on a almost monthly basis. There's some kind of violence happening in the Middle East between Abraham's sons.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, that reminds me of, I went to the ATM yesterday and I had 2 transactions. I put my card in, did a transaction, and then, you know how long it takes to do a transaction? It's probably a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And then the card comes back out, but then I had another account that I had to put something in. So I would put my second card in, and then the car behind me beeped, pulled out, and screamed, peeled out, and went around the bank to the walk-up teller, because there's a drive-through and a walk-up, and they just couldn't believe that I had 2 transactions.
Yes, that's right.
I was just like, dude, come on.
Hey, we should do a segment, what made the person behind Chris mad this week?
Right. Because I was like, good gravy. I mean, like, there's no more live tellers anymore.
Yeah.
Right? We have to do our transactions through ATMs for the most part.
So, yeah. So here they are. Sometimes God's expectation is that we wait. It's not that God is saying no. Sometimes God's saying not yet. And he has his purposes.
Right.
And so if we can just accept that when God chooses to answer, it'll be at the best time with the best solution for his purposes. And if we can understand that it's not about us, it's about him, then, we can have a lot more peace in it. There's so many times, like I think in the book of Psalms, the Bible says, be still and know that I am God, right? And there's so many of those moments. Wait on the Lord. In the due season, he'll lift you up. There's so many things like that.
There's another sermon in here altogether about the creation of, it says that Abram had sexual relations with Hagar. And, and then all of a sudden what ends up happening is the feelings begin to change.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in there that tells us that that's how we know that is designed for a marriage relationship, because as much as people try to detach their hearts and look at it as a physical act and not like a soul to soul act.
Right.
The reason why there was a treating of contempt is because it wasn't just an act of like, oh, I'm a servant, I'm going to provide a child,
Right.
and that's the end of it. No,
Right.
There was an intimate relationship. There was a connection with, the way that God designed man and woman to have children together. And therefore there's like an attraction, there's a loyalty, there's feelings, there's jealousy, there's all sorts of things that are mixed up in there. And the sermon is that, hello, it's because that none of that was meant to be a physical transaction.
Right.
And it's certainly not meant to be a monetary transaction.
That's exactly right.
Right. It is designed for those feelings.
Right.
It is designed for those interactions. And the reason why you watch so many movies, and there's movies built on this. In fact, I just read an article this morning about it. It was a movie with Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis, just Friends with Benefits, and at the time it broke up their marriage, or it broke them up for a time. Jessica Biel, she actually wanted to read for that part because she didn't want her husband to be, or maybe it was the boyfriend at the time, to play in that movie with somebody because they were gonna have feelings for each other, and of course they did. And what's so interesting is that ironically the movie itself was a movie about somebody who wanted it to be platonic, but they couldn't help themselves and they fell in love, right? And so it's because, guys, let's wake up here. It's because God designed it for marriage, for relationships for all time.
Right.
We can't get around it.
That's right. And then I think one of the beautiful things is, even as a result of the sin, God eventually shows back up with Abram, but he meets Hagar in her distress, and she recognizes, hey, God sees me. Even this woman that committed sin with some guy that wasn't her husband, and she's carrying a child that was not the promised one, God says, hey, I haven't forgot about you.
Right.
And she recognized that this Holy One sees me.
Well, imagine if you're Hagar or Hagar, or however you want to say it. Imagine if you're her, you probably lived your whole entire life without feeling seen.
Oh, sure.
Right. And all of a sudden, you're the one now who has Abram's child, and that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, hey, why are you still treating me like this lowly servant who's not being seen? All these emotions. And then God reaches out and understands and sees her. It's no wonder why she
thought that the baby would make her be seen. That was what was causing trouble in the tent, in Abram's house. And instead it was her distress that God shows up. And that's when she finally really felt seen. I think we try to use all kinds of things in our life to give us what we're really wanting. And what she wanted was to be seen by God. And then she finally was, right?
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
It is.
Well, hey, that's some good applications there. So hopefully we will see you next time as we pick up the series on the Bible Guys.